How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Okay.
Yeah.
You have very nice chair.
Yes. The chair is for gaming, you know. It's gaming chair.
Okay.
I think PhD student Yoon So-young is also connected. So So-young, can you say hello to Professor Atik and Edward?
Hi, I'm So-young Yoon, and thanks for giving opportunity for lecturing.
Okay.
You're welcome, So-young. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Oh, there are so many students in this room.
Yes.
Yes.
Over 70.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we have limited attendance for this Zoom, but they also can see it through YouTube, I think.
Okay.
With the live streaming.
Yeah, we have bachelor students, master student, and doctorate student join with us now.
So your university policy is to decentralize the students instead of meeting all the students in the class because of the coronavirus, right?
Yeah, currently we still conducting through online classes. What about in SNU?
In the summer, in early summer, there was a kind of lowering number of infected people in Korea. So originally, the Ministry of Education was announcing that we are going back to the pre-corona period, meaning that students will gather in the campus and meet together face-to-face. But probably in late July and September, we are experiencing a hike in the number of people, infected people. So we are also keeping the untact policy of online lecturing.
Okay, so right now you are using online lecturing.
Yes. So I bought my chair, camera, microphone, and all the systems. So I'm getting used to it.
Look for the chair. Where's my chair? How is he doing?
Huh?
Your son.
Oh, my son. He's doing well. He's in Jeju Island. It's the southern island located in the southern part of South Korea, and he's getting used to English-speaking environment there.
Okay.
So he's now a high school student.
High school student.
Yes.
What grade is he?
A first grade high school student.
First grade. So yeah, 1 year older than my son.
Yeah. Is he good?
Yeah, he's good. He is also still doing online learning.
Online learning. Yeah. He's an online kid. He loves games and all the online contents, right?
I remember that your son throw a picture.
Right.
Time passed by very fast. Okay.
Thank you, Saehoon, for your video. For your video, greeting and congratulations. At that time, so I like it very much.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The
professorship, yeah. Big congratulations on you, Atik. Professor Atik.
Professor Atik.
Yeah.
And then
you have to call Atik professor right now.
Yeah. Officially.
Okay. Bangun, Pak Bangun, hello. You see Pak Bangun also join us.
방훈.
Yeah.
안녕하세요. 방훈 있어요?
안녕하세요. 네, 잘 지냈어요.
잘 지냈어요?
반갑습니다. 저는 아직 회의 있어요.
오케이.
배려 하는데
He says in Korean that he's in the middle of another session, so he cannot show up by himself now.
Yes, he is very busy in Wednesday.
I miss him.
So how many PhD students you supervising right now?
In my lab, I think 13 or 14 PhD students are working together. Some of them are in their 4th and 5th year, meaning that they are preparing for graduation. While a person like Yoon So-hyung is in her 1st grade. So she last year she graduated from our master's program with distinction, and I thought that this kind of a lecturing opportunity will be a great boost for her to be here and to be interact with Diponegro University students.
Sure.
She still have plenty of time to finish.
Yeah, a long way to go still. Yeah.
But is it possible to take the doctoral degree in a shorter time?
Yes. The coursework usually takes 2 years. And after that, whenever he or she is prepared for her thesis defense with a few publication records, then they can graduate as soon as possible after their PhD candidate status.
Okay.
So probably the earliest graduation can take 3 years, 3.5 years.
3.5 years. Okay, that's very nice. So it's also depend on the research,
right?
Publication.
Yeah.
How many publications usually they have to make?
The university-wide rule is 0, meaning that it's completely up to the students and his or her advisor. But in our lab, we are requiring 2 to 3 publications in the international, prominent international journals. So it's not easy when preparing that kind of manuscript, as well as the thesis per se. So it takes usually 4 or 5 years for them to graduate.
Okay,
Pratik, maybe
for us to start now. Okay.
Please. Thank you.
Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Selamat pagi, salam sejahtera bagi kita semua. Good morning, everyone. Johan, Ohio.
Good morning.
Very firstly, let's pray to Allah God Almighty. Because of His blessing, we could be here together in this nice occasion, visiting professor program 2021. And of course, my warm welcome to Professor Kim Saehoon, and as well as for So Young Yoon. thank you very much for your willingness to join in our program. Of course, it is for how many time we make collaboration. Yeah. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah. Okay, and yeah, I think this program is we make collaboration between Department Architecture and WCU Universitas Diponegoro and 9 professors from all over the world, and it is include Seoul National University, such kind Prof. Saehoon with us now, and also several university in Japan, like Aritsumikan University. We will get a guest lecture from Tomohiko Yoshida, yeah, and also from Droghius University, Kagoshima University, Akashi, and also Griffith University from Australia, Tuskegee University from USA, and Mara University from Malaysia. So it's very important for this meeting, and thank you for our students. You are join in this session, and I hope that we can get much benefit from this session, and please be active in the discussion session. Okay, Edward, Professor Bangun, and also I see Professor Edi Purwanto, as well as Professor other professor, I think many join us, and we also link this program with YouTube, so maybe many participants can join us. Okay, before this meeting, before Prof. Kim 새hoon session, I would like to show little share screen. Gayatri, could you please help me? Share screen, okay. It just, okay, share, yeah, and yeah, I just want to remind some collaboration that we have made at that time. You see, yeah. It
Wow.
is 2019. At that time, we visit your school, Seoul National University. At that time, we are together with 40 students.
Right.
40 students, and you serve.
Is that Pak Bangun?
Yeah, with long hairs.
Yeah, you serve us in lunch in your school.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Very nice lunch.
Yeah,
Very
yeah.
nice. Visit your school, Seoul National University. At that time, we are together with 40. Could you please, Gayatri, could you please read it?
Gwanghamun scare.
Okay. And this is a student. We in field studies at that time, and we make a observation in Sochon village.
Yeah, Sachon. Yeah.
Village. Yeah, okay. And this is your participation in
Right.
international field school. Okay, at the time we can make offline activity. Yeah.
Wow.
This picture.
Yeah, I remember it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. This is a research collaboration between Diponegoro University and Prof. Saehoon in Seoul National University. We make research in Bukchon village, yeah, and also we make publication joint publication, yeah.
Mhm.
So let's make another publication together.
Right, yeah, it's about time.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it just little remind memory, good memory from us. And I think, Prof. Saehoon, now is your time to present your material.
Okay,
Please. Okay.
I'll share the screen. So can everybody see the screen?
Clearly.
Yes, yes.
Okay, good. Okay, so I will begin my talk titled The Shaping of Old and Attractive Historic Core in Seoul. So thank you for moderating this session, Professor Atik and Edward and Bangun. And I'm very glad to be here. And I'd like to share some ideas about where is the kind of old and attractive historic area in Seoul, and what has been the points of urban design in making and remaking this area to be more attractive, more walkable, and more historic-oriented places. So today's lecture will be divided into two sessions. For the first session, I will lead and I will describe the overall environment and overall layers of urban environment in Seoul's historic core area. And the second session will be led by a PhD student, Yoon So-young, and she will give you some snapshots and some projects that are related to the shaping of historic core in Seoul. So we will lecture for about 1.5 hours. Will it be okay, I think, the time?
Yes, it's okay.
Okay, so I will move on. So the first part is about Seoul. So probably some of you have been in Seoul, and many dramas, many medias or movies have been taken with the background of Seoul. It is a city of a capital city of South Korea, and about 10 million people live in this city. If we wrap up the surrounding area, which is called the capital region of South Korea around Seoul, about 1/4 of national population, about 1/2 of the national population, which is about 25 million or so, are living in the surrounding area. So as you can imagine, Seoul is the most important cities in South Korea, meaning that a lot of urban design and planning efforts and systems were made and were originated from the city of Seoul. And in terms of design and planning, the city of Seoul is the most advanced one compared to other local cities in South Korea. So in that point of view, I can say that a lot of things can be learned, and including some trial and errors and some positive aspects of making today's Seoul. So probably you have been to Seoul's downtown area, which is now called the historic core area of Seoul. And it is surrounded by mountains. As you can see in this picture, it is surrounded by small and large mountains. To the northern part, mountains of Bugak and Inwangsan is surrounding, while to the southern part, much more smaller mountain called Namsan is located. And in the middle of the picture, there is a big area called Yongsan military park, which used to be occupied by US militaries, but they are evacuating out of this place. And about 90% of the military is now out of this site, meaning that by 2035, this whole area, about 3 million square meter land, will be converted into national park. So it'll be a big turning moment, another turning moment for Seoul in the near future. And you can see the big river in the center of Seoul, which is called Han River. So it flows from east to west, and it has been one of the most important water transport area, and now serving as a good recreational place for Seoul citizens. And including Han River, there are many rivers and streams, including Cheonggyecheon, which runs the downtown core area from west to east. And the restoration of this small stream called Cheonggyecheon will be further described in the second session of today's lecture.
Sorry, Saehoon.
Mm-hmm.
The slide is not moved. Is it?
Yeah, I'm still working on the first slide.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And there are many layered places in Seoul, which dates back to 600 to 700 years ago. And I will show you some of the pictures of Seoul in the following sections. So in the left of the map, you will see the location of South Korea and Seoul, which is abutting the division line between North and South Korea. And we are quite close to this division line called the DMZ. And in the center of Seoul, to the northern part of Han River, there is a old historic area called Hanseongbu during the Joseon Dynasty period. We call it now downtown Seoul or historic core of Seoul. So Seoul's establishment as a capital city started with Joseon Dynasty, which is a middle kingdom of South Korea, Joseon Dynasty, beginning in the late 14th century. So with the establishment of capital city, many palaces and city walls and other historic residential buildings began to be built in the downtown core area. The original form of the city was called Hanseongbu, which evolved from the walled enclave and its surrounding area. And after the fall of Joseon Dynasty, there was a period of modernization and westernization. Also, the Japanese period, which is a kind of a forced occupation of South Korea between 1910 to 1945. And during this period, the administrative boundary of the city expanded dramatically, as you can see in the middle of the diagram. Now the country became liberated and Seoul became the capital city of South Korea, having about 600 square meters and a population of 10 million. So these maps show the historic geography of historic core area. And as I already mentioned, it is surrounded by high and low mountains, and hilly landscape is kind of very special characteristics of Seoul. So some of the foreign people who first visited Seoul is quite surprised that a lot of the Seoul's downtown area is surrounded by hilly landscape. And as you can imagine, when there is a kind of rainfall period during due to the monsoon climatic characteristics, there is a heavy rainfall during the summer. And during the summer, there is streams and which flows into Cheonggyecheon, which is located in the center of this area. And then it meets with the Han River right here, and then it flows to the West Sea of South Korea. And along this Cheonggyecheon, there is a the most important commercial road which was formed during the Joseon Dynasty called the Jongno, which is located from west to east, which dissects the center part of the city wall area. So along this division line of Jongno and Cheonggyecheon, the northern part is called Bukcheon. Buk means the northern part. Cheon means a kind of village or neighborhood. And the southern area used to be called Namcheon, which means the southern part of South Korea. So in the northern part, major palaces like Gyeongbokgung or Changdeokgung is located, and many upper class elites residential areas and administrative areas were heavily located during the Joseon Dynasty. In the Namcheon, which is located to the south of Jongno, there has been more commoners area and markets and many other things in Namcheon. So during the Japanese period, there has been many dramatic change in the urban form of Seoul. And one type of change is the making of new roads and modern infrastructure. So to the left of the slide, you can see that the dotted line has been planned during the Japanese period for making bigger roads for streetcars and railways, and eventually to the which was open to the roads. And not all of these planned roads were actually realized. About 2/3 of them has been actually implemented, and some were left unrealized, meaning that the urban fabric and street pattern of Joseon Dynasty still remains in the area that this kind of modern hierarchical street system was not implemented. Also, during the Japanese period, there were many water supply systems were in place. And it was also a period of bottom-up industrialization, meaning that many entrepreneurs during the Japanese period built their own factories and produced the goods and services to serve the whole nation. So to the right of the slide, you can see that there are two types of different factories, which one, the red dot represent factories owned by Korean entrepreneurs, while the blue dots means that factories owned by Japanese entrepreneurs. So you can see that the Jongno and Cheonggyecheon was also, during the Japanese period, was a kind of division line between the territory of Korean industrialization and Japanese-led industrialization. So these differences still characterize the cultural and local environment of today's Seoul. So Korea became independent in 1945, and there was a period of unsettlement, and there was a tragic Korean War which took place between 1950 and 1953. You can imagine that this period was during the Cold War between the Democratic part and the socialist part across the globe, and South Korean Peninsula became the kind of hotspot of these two different forces fighting against with each other. So there, you are probably aware of the history of the division of South and North Korea. And after the Korean War, there was a 3/8 line, division line between South and North Korea. And during the period, many buildings and roads were burnt down due to the Korean War, civil war, and substantial war damage and social instability has continued. But some modern infrastructure began to be built and continued to be maintained. At that time, in the 1960s and 70s, there was a military junta who became the president of South Korea, whose name was Park Chung-hee, and he has a military background, but tried to modernize the liberated South Korea and focused on the rebuilding of urban lands across Seoul and other industrial cities across the South Korean peninsula. And one of the most important urban planning policies implemented in this area was making new urban lands, which was titled the land readjustment. This kind of policy was a tool to convert agricultural land to urban land, including residential superblocks and apartment blocks, without a major transformation of land ownership. So instead of the public who did not have enough financial capability to purchase all of the privatized land, they simply played the role of land developer without changing the land ownership. And after land development and infrastructural installment, this ownership was redistributed to the original landowners. By this, a lot of new lands outside Seoul's historic core area could be developed. And during the period, a major residential area was formed and developed during in the 60s and 70s. And one of the most important areas was Gangnam area. So you probably heard of a song Gangnam Style or many dramas featuring on Gangnam. And the whole entire area of Gangnam was developed based on the policy of land readjustment during the period. Of course, all the buildings and recent development took place after that, beginning in the 1980s. This land readjustment was largely focused on the formation of land itself. And in the 60s and 70s, many infrastructure was developed. In the picture, you can see a map of Seoul's city wall, which was built in the Joseon dynasty. And one of the problems of Seoul was that most of the infrastructure development was focused on the inner part of castle, meaning that the connection between the inner part and outer part and other expressways was highly prioritized. And so a lot of infrastructure was built during the period. And you can see many tunnels, including the Namsan tunnels and Samcheong tunnel and Sajik tunnels, which links the interior part and outerior part of Seoul's historic core area. And in the center of this historic core area, you can see this dotted blue line, which is the Cheonggye elevated highway, which was which used to be a stream, and then the top part of the stream was covered up, and a highway, elevated highways were constructed beginning in the 1960s to late 70s. So one of the intention of this development was to quickly move from inside and outside of this historic area. And you will see that later the demolition of this elevated highway and restoration of stream was actually in place in the 2000s. So during the period after that, many urban districts were shaped in the inner part of Seoul's historic core. To the left is a small parcel-based individually shaped districts, meaning that no major or policy intervention was made in this area. So a lot of street parcels and buildings were remained, forming the basic framework of Joseon dynasty. So some of the urban fabrics date back to 600 or 700 years ago. And of course, all the buildings were rebuilt after that. But still in the Japanese period and the liberation period, there has been construction of hanok, which is an wooden Korean style traditional houses. And some of these wooden houses are still remaining there. And probably in Atik's early presentation, there was a picture of wooden houses. That's what I call hanok here. And Seocheon and Bukchon area, which is located to the west of Gyeongbok Palace, and to the east of Gyeongbok Palace are individually called Seocheon and Bukchon. And this area has many small individual parcels that are occupied by these traditional houses. And there are also large parcel-based districts, which means that a number of places where parcels were merged together, and the government designated this area as kind of a development district, meaning that more commercial and financial firms invested in this area to build office towers and shopping malls. And this area became a place of large infrastructure development. And some picture will be shown in the later slides. Also, I in the earlier period slide, I showed you the land readjustment, which shaped the outer surrounding area of Seoul's historic core. But even within the historic core, there were some areas that were shaped by land readjustment, meaning that in the 60s and 70s, these areas were shaped by the efforts of government who did not have financial capability to purchase all of the land together. So within the policy of land readjustment, individual owners owners' land was transformed into new urban land, and this green shaded area was the outcome of this land readjustment. Also, there were some urban redevelopment projects in the United States. These kind of areas are called urban renewal projects, which is an effort by private companies or developers to purchase all of the privately owned land, and then they redevelop this area into business districts. And most of these urban redevelopment projects are located between the Gyeongbok Palace and Doksu Palace, which is the area of business district, and the city hall is located along this line, and a lot of business activities are taking place along this area. So by building uses, there may be two big differences between residential uses and non-residential uses. So to the right of the slide, you can see yellow dots, meaning that residential uses are located. So along the center of the historic core, very few residential use buildings are located, meaning that most of these area in the Joseon dynasty were residential areas, but these residential functions were replaced by non-residential uses like offices and shopping malls and some manufacturing buildings and big corporation headquarters, etc. And beyond that, to the northern part of historic core and southern part of historic core, which is abutting the mountain of Namsan, there are some residential uses. So there are very few, almost none high-rise apartment towers within this historic core, because South Korean planners strictly controlled the development of high-rise cores within this historic core. And because of this policy, largely the area is occupied by low-rise traditional houses, while some of these parcels were merged together, and multifamily modern housing were sometimes have been built. So these are a series of pictures that Cheonggyecheon was left and served as the core urban stream of the Joseon dynasty. But after the liberation of South Korea, this area became publicly owned land, and a lot of urbanization took place to Seoul in the 60s and 70s, meaning that migrants from non-Seoul areas and also migrants from abroad who escaped from the Civil War or even the Japanese period moved back to Seoul. And these people, some of these people did not have the property to build their own houses, so they had no choice but to occupy the stream bank side area and built this kind of illegal and informal settlements. And I believe some of these kind of buildings can be seen in the city of Semarang too, in the northern coastal area of Semarang. Probably we share certain memories together between Seoul and Semarang. And in the 60s and 70s, as I already showed you, the military junta, Park Chung-hee, had covered up this stream, as the stream area was dirty, and all the sewage water flowed from this stream. And after covering up, there was a elevated highway was constructed. But between 2003 and 5, the mayor of Lee Myung-bak, who was elected as a mayor, decided to restore the stream of Cheonggyecheon and make it as a urban amenity places. So to the left, this is what we can see in contemporary Seoul's Cheonggyecheon area. And this restoration story will be more elaborated in the second section of today's lecture. So this is today's Cheonggyecheon. And also there was a big movement of transforming a vehicle occupied area to more citizen-oriented and walkable spaces. So one of these movement took place from converting a wide street into an urban plaza with trees and walkable amenities. And from this, the square of Gwanghamun was designed and made in the early 2000s. And this building, which used to be the headquarters, administrative headquarters of the Japanese period, was torn down, and the front face of Gyeongbok Palace, which used to be occupied by the Joseon Dynasty kings and queens, was restored. And in recent years, this whole Gwanghwamun Gwangjang is under redesign and rebuilt, meaning that the square, the pedestrian-oriented square, this part was moved to the left side of this road, meaning that the urban fabric of to the west and square will be merged together, and the road will be put aside along this line. And also to the left is a City Hall of Seoul, and in front of the City Hall there was a wide roads that and crossways that are not friendly to pedestrians. And in the early 2000s, this whole area was redesigned to the right, called the City Hall Square, and this whole area was devoted to the social activities of Seoul citizens. And the new City Hall was built behind the original City Hall building of Seoul. And in the earlier slide, I told you that the city wall was built in the early Joseon Dynasty, and as so many years have passed since its early establishment, a number of places along this city wall was built, sometimes privately occupied, and sometimes demolished. So over the last 20 years, there has been continued efforts to restore the city wall and link the pedestrian walkway along the city wall, which can experience the hilly landscape of Seoul. So it was one of the most important historic restoration projects undertaken over the last 20 years. And also there has been an effort to reinvent modern historic, modern infrastructure built in the 1970s to reinvent itself as a headquarter of urban manufacturing. So this area is called the Saehoon Sanga. It was one of the most early cases of combining the residential use to non-residential use. But in the 90s, this building became derelict, and one of the mayors decided to completely remove this building infrastructure and make it into green spaces and redevelop the entire area. But there has been a social movement that this kind of building alone can serve as an important memory of the city, and there was a big movement away from the complete demolition of this building, and then instead the Seoul government decided to keep this building, and there has been a new manufacturing activities that are attracting many young entrepreneurs and visitors who are interested in this kind of early urban fabrics of South Korea and Seoul. And I showed you a few projects that have been very important in shaping today's historic core of Seoul. And from here, I would like to introduce a few urban planning systems that has been very important in shaping this environment. And in Seoul, there is the most important and overarching comprehensive master plan that are scheduled to be redesigned and updated every 10 to 15 years. That's what we call the Seoul Plan, 2030 Seoul Plan, which is under revision now toward the 2040 Seoul Plan. So this plan sets the goals and the directions of remaking the future of Seoul for the future. And it is a kind of a comprehensive master plan hierarchy. Under this plan, we divide the Seoul's area into a few neighborhoods, and each neighborhood has are designed with special plans. That's what we call the neighborhood master plans. And it sets the direction of each neighborhood. What is the most important site for the neighborhood, how housing will be provided in this area, or where the stream should be restored, and where parks are required to be remade. These kind of planning goals are set in this neighborhood master plans. And then under this, there are two different types of plans, which is official plans, like basic plan for historic urban core, which is under revision again. And I'm participating in some of these basic plan, and other district level plans are also in play for urban revitalization or community empowerment and other, for example, the Han River area is strategically very important places. So Han River area is also has its own version of master plan, which was in place in 2015. So under these systems, legitimate urban plans and administrative plans, and also publicly initiated development or revitalization projects, many urban design and development practices are undertaken. So the activity of setting the goals in the urban planning systems and following these systems, many in place urban design activities take place in Seoul. So in terms of urban design, I'd like to introduce a few visions for Seoul's historic core. And to the left, these red areas are the location of palaces, which are surrounded by walls and hilly areas. And you see the Jongno, which is the historic commercial road, and the Namdaemun and the Cheonggyecheon. So this is a basic kind of urban framework of historic core. And on top of this, many areas has their own neighborhood characteristics, and these characteristics include the urban manufacturing or cultural industries, and near the Dongdaemun, fashion and design industries are very vibrant, and also the residential areas here has their own characteristics. And by doing urban design in Seoul, it means that boosting and maintaining these kind of neighborhood characteristics are very important. And along this framework, also you link many accesses and pedestrian corridors so that the people walking or living in this area feel comfortable, and the mobility networks are efficiently organized. And also many district level urban design activities are placed. For example, these are kind of planning goals set by districts. And in each district, we apply very fine-grained height control of individual buildings by districts. Also view corridors and FAR management are also undertaken by different districts. And to the right of the slide, you will see that many historic assets are classified in detail in the historic core master plan documents. For example, the castle wall or the old streets and streams, and the plan of blocks and also the views and landscape of history, and then the built environment, and all of these kind of historic assets are individually maintained and become part of the actual or urban design procedures. So take the example of 7 large districts and 18 sub-districts. Each area is also carefully designed by urban designers, and these kind of administrative plans set the important goals for individual areas when individual buildings are developed or individual parks are made. These kind of higher level planning and design goals are very important for the official directions and guidelines, design guidelines. I'd like to briefly introduce one example of redesigning Jongno Street, which is now I'm participating on Urban Designer and the Seoul Institute, and along with some private companies are revising the historic core area plan for the future. So in the left, this street is Jongno, which is about 8 or 9 lane wide road, which connects the most important parts of historic area of Seoul. And over the last probably 10 to 15 years, there has been a continued efforts to move vehicles and cars away from historic core and make the whole area more walkable and livable. So the middle of this picture, which is yellow or green or blue, these streets are scheduled or planned to have fewer vehicle lanes and let the cars do not pass along the street, and invest in green infrastructure and green mobility. This is a kind of long-term plan for the future of Seoul's historic core. And as you can see, in the earlier period, in the 2000s, there has been an effort to restore the Cheonggyecheon, and along this restored stream, there has been bike roads and streets that made the core area much more comfortable and efficient. And then the next, during over the last 10 years, there has been an effort to relink these 4 south-north axis with these background images. So a lot of urban functions in the historic core of Seoul has been linked with each other along these 4 axes. And in today's paradigm is to relink these 4 axes with Jongno and restore the Cheonggyecheon. And to do this, the Jongno, the characteristics should be converted, because the today's Jongno is heavily car-oriented, and not many activities, social activities, take place along this street. So the plan of this historic core area is to reduce the lanes of Jongno and then expand the walkable area along the Jongno. So these pictures are today's Jongno, which is not very bad. And but one of the problems of this area is that so many buses and private cars move along this line, and it is heavily, as you can see in the upper drawings, the whole area is vehicle roads, and there is no interaction between these kind of mobility area and walkable area and individual parcels with very diverse urban functions. So the plan, the urban design of this area is basically focused on the conversion of today's 4-lane Jongno to 8-lane two-way system into 2-way 4-lane system. And previously the bus lane was centered along the center line, but it was set aside to the roadside. and there is a kind of walking infrastructure, including bus stops and bike roads and pedestrian walkways. And to revise this kind of system and to revise this public space with extended historic importance was the most important goal of this project. So the proposal is what you can see to the bottom of this area. So when two streets were intersecting with each other, there we are trying to require that each building owners build a square and for social interaction and recreation, and the extended area of walkways are set aside for pedestrians and for social activities. So to the left is the current condition, and we are proposing to the right, which links the commercial street with pedestrian walkways, and to the top of the area, this is a Pimat goal, which is the historic street, street of dating back to Joseon Dynasty. So we are trying to rebuild this kind of system with bus temporary stop area and bus stops and bike lanes to the north and U-tunnels to the south. So these kind of proposals are under making and will be part of the official administrative plans for historic core. So this kind of design is not unique to Seoul. As you can see, around the world, many cities are experimenting with this kind of road diet and making pedestrians more walkable places. So to the right, you can see that Paris Champs-Élysées Street redesign proposal, which is taking place on time. So these are kind of rendering of revised and redesigned the Jongno Street with a lot of trees or double planted, and the former passing by street were converted into more walkable and sittable, and bike lanes set aside in line with the bus stops and pedestrian ways, so that these different types of personal mobilities and bike riders can feel more comfortable to use this space as their kind of destination places. So redesigning Jongno is not the end by itself, and we are trying to redesign Jongno to reconnect all different urban functions scattered around this Jongno along this newly designed street. And it will be an important turning point for the whole area abutting Jongno, as about 20 years ago, the restoration of Cheonggyecheon has been very important in amenity remaking of Seoul's northern area. And near the Jongno and Cheonggyecheon, these type of urban fabrics are to be redesigned and redeveloped in the near future. And previously, as you can see in this picture here, Seoul's government had a plan to allow these kind of the red buildings are to be planned in the future, meaning that originally there has been very small parcels scattered inside these blocks, and the original plan was to merge these areas or guide the merging of these parcels to build high-rise office towers. But there has been a dramatic transformation of this kind of urban fabric redesign to the right, meaning that why not keep the original urban fabrics and small buildings and small streets on site instead of turning these into modern high-rise buildings? And why don't we try to reconnect these small and large urban fabrics all together? This is a kind of a big paradigm shift that is taking place now in Seoul. Also, there are many buried historic assets and historic memories dating back to Joseon Dynasty. So wherever underground excavation takes place, there are many relics and historically valuable things buried underground. And in Gongpyeong area, there has been a monumental move that when a private developer tried to dig this ground, there has been a huge area that shows the valuable historic evidence of residential areas in this neighborhood. So the Seoul's government collaborated with the private developer of this area to make the living museum of these underground places, so that this area is open to the public 24 hours and 365 days a year, so that the visitors and probably students in architecture or urban design are interested in the old fabric and historic memories of this area. While the upper part of this living museum, there are high-rise office towers are constructed with the FAR or height incentives given by the Seoul's government. So in this way, the Dongdaemun area is also under urban design, and some of them were already in place, including the making of a world design park and plaza called the DDP. Probably Atik and Edward have been here before, and these were built in about 15 years ago. And after this construction of this building, there are many other related projects that are trying to relink this whole area with the castle wall and other layers of urban fabrics. So these are the redesign of Dongdaemun Plaza, which used to be occupied by old sports stadiums, and some of these stadiums were most of these stadiums were demolished, and these kind of futuristic design of architecture was undertaken by architect Zaha Hadid. And then after this, there has been a movement to relink this whole area with the castle wall, which is crossed by these red lines, which crosses the side of DDP and then goes south. And to relink this historic castle walls with the Cheonggyecheon and Jongno and Eujiro are urban design projects that are now in process in Seoul. So these are some of the views that all of these efforts were put together, and we are creating this kind of landscape in Seoul, and these kind of efforts will continue in the near future. Okay, by now the first session ends, and I believe So-young will share her slides and continue her talk from now on.
Can you see the screen? Okay. In part 2, I will talk about 4 cases in Seoul's historic core. The Cheonggyecheon restoration project is a triumph of urban renewal. This project dismantled our massive old infrastructure as shown in the right picture and revived the stream as shown in the left picture. Then the heart of the city is now a green waterfront park complemented with improved public transport, giving citizens a better way of life. The stream was once a landmark steeped in history. Cutting across Seoul, Cheonggyecheon became a victim of urbanization toward the middle of the 20th century. The riverside was lined with shanties as shown in the first picture, and sanitation became an issue. To resolve this, the river was covered with concrete and turned into a 6-kilometer roadway around the late 1950s. By 1976, Cheonggyecheon had a 5.8 kilometers, 6-lane elevated highway to accommodate the increasing traffic in the capital. While this infrastructure served its purpose, Seoul became a bustling city with its largest commercial center situated in the Cheonggyecheon area. However, by 2000, the highway reached its point of obsolescence and faced core challenges like safety risks or air and noise pollution, among other things. Cheonggyecheon restoration was a critical point during the campaign of Seoul mayor. The elected mayor strongly pushed for the restoration of the stream and put forth various policies aimed at implementing the project. The best policies he promoted is the triangular governance system for Cheonggyecheon project. The mayor set an organization comprised of voluntary participants, including government officials, experts, and civic group representatives. Their strong will made this project successful, taking only 27 months for completion. This project turned Seoul into a global metropolis with a mind for sustainability. Stemming from this project, Seoul developed public transportation and declared pedestrian city in 2013. Through the Cheonggyecheon restoration project, we learned 4 important principles in urban planning. The first principle is that the owner of the city is its citizens, not cars. It means public improvements will develop quality of urban environment, including economic vitality. Some experts opposed the project, arguing that it would cause traffic congestion. However, there was a decrease in the number of cars by 70,000 and an increase in bus and subway ride by roughly 6 to 10% during construction period. The second principle is leadership and political will in implementing this project. In the process of this project, the mayor and Cheonggyecheon Restoration Project headquarters faced numerous criticism. In the process of this project, the mayor and Cheonggyecheon Restoration Project headquarters the city of Seoul accomplished the difficult task of focusing on the goal and getting the public on board, which takes patience and a massive cooperation among stakeholders. The third principle was found of improving sustainability. Unearthing the Cheonggyecheon and making it a place where people can gather enhance the quality of life. Last but not least, improve public, gather citizens, and make communities more active. Next, you can experience the coexistence of the past and the present in Seoul's history core through 2 cases. The first case discusses the preservation and management of residential areas in Bukchon. The second discusses the revitalization of Ulchi-ro district through social media and changes in urban lifestyle. Where can you feel the most authentic Korean culture in Seoul? Most Korean citizens will probably say Bukchon Hanok Village, built with Korean traditional housing. It currently serves as both a residential neighborhood and a tourist attraction, but dating back 600 years, families of noble status resided in this neighborhood. Many organizations started conducting research and making policies to preserve Bukchon Hanok Village since 2000. In 1999, parts of Hanok Village were destroyed to build low-rise buildings. So residents of Hanok Village filed complaints to the city for a plan to better preserve the neighborhood. In 2000, the city proposed a comprehensive urban plan, providing residents who have registered their housing as Hanok with subsidization to help maintain their housing structure. Seoul has categorized all structures into Hanok or non-traditional, buying appropriate real estate to use as community centers. Street cleaning and maintenance services were launched to improve street conditions. Since 2008, extensive research is being conducted into both tangible and intangible asset valuation of Hanok and its projections for future livable housing. City's recognition of Hanok as a valuable asset asserts its intention of revitalization Seoul by utilizing Hanok as an essential city asset. Aside from managing the property of Hanok, the city of Seoul set Bukchon Hanok village as a district, directly managing its density, scenery, alley vibe, and landscape, among other things. The red zone should be built under 12 meters, and A to G color zone should be built as a type of Hanok. So setting Hanok village as a district and managing it as an area, Bukchon Hanok village still shows the beautiful landscape. Tourists can be spotted wearing hanbok, traditional Korean clothes, while sightseeing. The coexistence of the past and the present can also be through the changes in urban dynamics of Ulji로. In the previous case, the city put in an incredible effort into preserving historical assets. In contrast, this case, the revitalization of Ulji로 district through social media and urban lifestyle changes. Images below show the Seoul you can experience with the 20 minutes walking distance. If someone was to visit, they would most likely remember this area as its concrete jungle, but if you walk past it, you will find yourself surrounded by familiar sights, or they look like completely different neighborhoods. People say that the stark difference is its charm. Ulji로 district, clustered with manufacturing businesses, was instrumental to Seoul's rapid development. The identity of the district currently is experiencing side effects from rapid growth and changes. But now, old Ulji로 has new secrets hiding in its old and dark alleys. Many of the formerly abandoned upper floors of the area's low-rise buildings are filled with hidden new bars and businesses. These cafes and bars are hard to spot unless you have their exact address, as they usually don't have a sign outside. The best way to find them is to get the exact building number and work upstairs. How has this district been revived to a popular destination without any restorations? This current revitalization can be explained through 4 factors. First, Ulji로 can be reached by 5 different subway lines, making it easily approachable by young people. Secondly, the rent is cheap. Since the rent on the upper floors of old building was cheap, artists fleeing gentrified neighborhoods made their new home in Ulji로 Printing Alley over the past 8 years. Some artists decided to sell either drinks in one corner of their studio to mingle with one another and make some extra money to pay rent. Third, there has been a wave of retro revival embracing the beauty of old things. Some of those places started to go viral on social media as non-artist crowds found it too fun to search for hidden spots in a neighborhood, unlike modern days of Seoul. Last but not least, social media has been instrumental in promoting this neighborhood's uniqueness and coining the term "neutral." So now, Uljiro's many businesses rely on social media, especially Instagram, to get customers to drop by. As you can see in the left side, there is an exponential increase in number of postings each year.
Can I interrupt a little bit?
Yeah.
What I find very interesting about the Ulji로 district as a kind of hip place for young people to visit and enjoy and spend their times with their friends and lovers is that the urban design of this kind of old area is not always by big buildings or super blocks or fancy facades of glasses. I believe that what contemporary people are fond of is many different aspects of urbanity, which can be partly experienced by these kind of crisscrossing small shops and active and vibrant atmosphere, which is originated by the small entrepreneurs and small manufacturers working together along the street. And this kind of reinventing or kind of manifestation of Uchiro as a hip place today is, I believe, has a lot of messages that can be learned by contemporary urban designers, and that urban design is not always about big urban filmmaking activity, but also is trying to keep and maintain the originality and the kind of different layers of activity and time embedded in this area.
Thank you. Next, capitalistic gain-driven urban manufacturing out has become another issue in Seoul's historic core. Industry in Seoul's historic core has been spatially segregated between finance and manufacturing. The light blue dots in the left picture represent the locations of finance headquarters, and the pink dots show locations of manufacturing businesses. We can see that each color remains in its own cluster. The finance cluster includes headquarters of banks and international firms, while the manufacturing cluster includes small and old businesses. Despite the overall decline in urban manufacturing, the manufacturing cluster remains a powerful industrial ecosystem, attracting similar small businesses to Ulji로. Uljiro's capacity to conduct the entire process from producing to circulation greatly increases efficiency, which attracts not only businesses within Seoul, but nationally. Although this network clearly seems to have retained manufacturing industry in urban center, it is continuously debatable where it is appropriate to sustain manufacturing industries in urban center. We can think of several reasons like different interests among landowner and business owner, capitalism, outdated infrastructure, and the first industrial revolution. A part of Ulji로 has started with development, as shown in the first picture, and residential and commercial areas are scheduled to be built, as shown in the picture on the right. A redevelopment plan is established for other areas as well, but it was stopped due to the blackish from merchants and other various opposition movements. Both sides make a good argument, but I personally agree with maintaining manufacturing businesses within the city. First of all, manufacturing jobs are more common and do not require higher education degree compared to the new tech-based industry. Maintaining urban manufacturing businesses will help solve Seoul's youth unemployment and job mismatch issues. There is a big population of young people wanting to learn skills directly from craftsmen, and then craftsmen who also want to pass along their know-hows. Secondly, the outer areas of Seoul have enough competition attracting new businesses because there are already well-established tech clusters. So to conclude this part 2 lecture, the Cheonggyecheon restoration project showed the necessity of long-term visions for public improvements. Throughout the project, the city embraced various interest communities like government officials and communities of citizens like those. They dealing with various organizations to ensure the quality of urban environments and quality of life. Both Ulji로 district and Bukchon Hanok village show that the history can thrive in modern day society with Seoul's intricate and well-established preservation policies. Two presented cases also are examples of critical role citizens play as consumers, boosting and promoting businesses. And the argument about maintaining manufacturing in urban center, considering the needs and the efficiency of industrial ecosystem in Ulji로 district, the city should carefully set the long-term visions to not conform to capitalism. Thank you.
So to wrap up today's lecture, it seems that the urban design of Seoul is a kind of a mixture of institutional controls and administrative plans and visions and many controls for overly overwhelming development, while also allowing for the realization of the creativity of private developers, linking with places and people and the social networks remaining in the historic core of area. And I believe that the role of urban designer is put together these different pieces all together and propose a visionary, but also as well as applicable plans that can be they can make differences in the historic core of urban area. Thank you very much for your attention.
Okay. Thank you very much for a nice presentation, Prof. Saehoon, and also Saehoon. So before we go to a session of question and answer, I like to convey a brief CV from Prof. Saehoon. Okay, yeah. Actually, Prof. Saehoon has education, Doctor of Design from Harvard University, as well as his master in design studies also. And he has actually has many experience as an urban planner and urban designer in a Seoul city, as well as in a Yongno project. Okay, and now he is department chair, Seoul National University Department of Landscape and Architecture, and also director of SNU graduate program in urban design, and also he is an executive planner and director of SNU interdisciplinary program in landscape architecture. So many experience from Prof. Saehoon. Okay, so it's lucky for us. Prof. Saehoon can share knowledge with us. Okay, and with the CV of Song Yo-yoon. Yeah, she actually is her research interest in urban design and city planning, job dynamic in city, and spatial welfare related to neighborhood unit plan. And regarding her education, her Master of Urban Design from Seoul National University, as well as the Bachelor of Architecture from Kyung-hee University. Okay, now we go to question and answer session. So who will has a question can raise hand. Okay, from Muhammad Fali Siva. First, please convey your question briefly.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Atik. Thank you for the presentation, Prof. Let me introduce myself. My name is Muhammad Fali Siva. You can call me Fali. I would like to ask a question. Changes in the shape of the city area will certainly affect the community, which sometimes people reject the change because they are comfortable with the existing environment, such as the culture or their social life. How does the current government respond to this problem so that people can accept the changes? That's my question. Thank you.
Okay.
So yeah, should I answer?
Yes, please.
Yeah. So Vali, thank you for your question. I think that that's really an important one because the historic core of a city like Seoul has many varied interest, and the ownership and the occupation of streets or private spaces are very diversified. So most of the big plans involve sometimes oppositions and different perspectives fused with each other. So probably all of the project that I and Soyoung showed you will be involved with the question you just raised. So it really up to the project that will be implemented. In the case of Cheonggyecheon, for example, restoring the stream was one thing, and removing the street lanes and removing the street vendors was another thing. And you can imagine that a lot of street vendors and also owners of the land and buildings near the Cheonggyecheon was at first very strongly against the restoration of Cheonggyecheon, because originally they thought that having a wide road next to their shops or buildings will be better in terms of their property value, and the visitors or consumers who will visit their places. But there has been a continued efforts to persuasion and show the cases of a good example of removing that kind of blocking infrastructure and converting it into pedestrian amenities. And also Seoul government has been very active in providing a place that street vendors can do their businesses while during the construction or after the restoration of Cheonggyecheon. So these kind of efforts should be mixed with each other to persuade the process. And after this kind of persuasion by different projects, there are some procedures that the government can move forward the projects. So after the public hearings and announcement in the media, then the law allows the implementer of the project to move forward by putting the fences and starting the construction projects with even when the opposition itself did not disappear completely. So it is kind of two types of systems that this kind of public hearing and walking and talking with these stakeholders are important, but also South Korean government has made the policy and institutions very procedure, meaning that with the procedure, you can move on with the process of the project implementation after a certain validated public hearing process.
Thank you for this.
Thank you for your answer, from Saehoon. And now we go to the girl one. Novala, please.
Thank you so much for the opportunities. So first, I'm sorry that I can turn on my cameras because of electrical troubles in my house. So let me introduce myself first. My name is Novala. You can call me Novala. Okay. Thank you so much, Mr.
Mantap.
Saehoon.
Novala binti Atik.
Right. Thank you so much for the insightful presentation. Okay, so my question is, in redesigning historical areas in Seoul, Are there any regulation relating to building borderline and building base coefficient? Okay, I hope you'll understand my question. Thank you.
I heard the first word, building borderline, and what was the second word?
The second is building base coefficient.
Base coefficient.
Yes, it was like maximum percentage of land used for building. Regulation, yes.
So the overall volume of the building, you mean, right? The building
yes.
floors and heights and overall volumes of the building, right?
Yes, it was such kind of that.
Okay. Thank you, Novella, for your question. Actually, there are very, very detailed regulations for each parcel for development in Seoul, especially the downtown core area, because there are 3 different types of building regulations in South Korea. One comes from the South Korean government, which is called the territorial building code, which governs the whole land area of South Korea nationally. And as you can imagine, this national code is too broad, too big. So for each city, building regulation and architecture regulation should be more detailed. So the next version goes to the municipality and each city code. So every land has its own land uses and its zoning. So by its land use and zoning, every municipality are mandated to devise their own building code for each parcel by building uses, and they announce it publicly, which becomes the official law system by municipality level. And the third one is more important, meaning that a highly important and valuable area like the historic core of Seoul, these 2 national and municipality level building code are still too broad. So we want to be more specific about individual buildings and streets for the borderline definition and setback definition, height, FAR, and the building footprint, and the uses that can be accommodated in each parcel. So for this purpose, there is a district level planning, which follows the basic guideline of historic core master plan. So using these 3 kind of building codes, every parcels and borderlines and the building volumes are defined, and especially in the core area for residential buildings, about 5-story residential buildings are allowed, but not beyond that. And then if you want to build in terms of height, if you want to build an office building or non-residential buildings, the height should be lower than maybe I remember 70 meter or so. So this kind of strict building control maintains the overall landscape of historic core mid and mid height density. So this is the kind of a basic system. Probably Soyoung, do you want to add some more ideas about the parcel or development system, FAR? Because in terms of land use, the historic core area is largely designated commercial area, meaning that by national law, the FAR of 10 is allowed, which means that 30 to 40 floor high-rise buildings can be developed according to the national law. But urban designers and planners in Seoul do not want this downtown area to be occupied by skyscrapers. So we use the third one, district level land use planning, to limit the developable volume of individual parcels.
So this regulation about buildings volume and height. It causes some controversy in Seoul because many owners of the land or thinking about building property, they want to high-rise buildings, and but in perspective of public, Seoul has to sustain skyline or the view of landscape, so it is really debatable. And now is always ongoing every year, I think.
Right. So I showed you the example of Gongpyeongdong, where the Living Museum was constructed in the redevelopment district area, right? But for private developers and owners of that land, by designing and making that kind of publicly good living museum, they get floor area and height incentive from the government to build more after giving the living museum to the ownership of public. So there is a kind of deal system between private developer and the public. The private developer give public good to the government. The government allows more building heights and volumes to be developed on the site. So this kind of deal system has been in place in Seoul for over 15 to 20 years. So that is an important mechanism for the kind of negotiation between the public and the private.
It's interesting one, yeah. You know, the student actually just learn urban design for 3 weeks, you know. So it's very, very, yeah, very, very complicated for them, I think. But it is very interesting. And you remember the Popo? Saehoon, did you remember?
Popo?
Yes.
Where is he? Oh, over there.
Yes, he's in Mara.
Yeah. Hi.
Okay.
Yes, we've actually met in 2017,
Right.
years ago.
Yeah, I can't see you, but I can remember your voice.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much for the answers. It's very clear, and yes, it's very enough. Thank you.
Okay. Next time, please show up your face and we can say hello again.
All right. All right.
Okay, thank you. Now we go to Sydney. And after Sydney will be Simon.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Atik, with the chance and the time. Let me introduce myself. First of all, Prof. Saehoon. My name is Zidan, and you can call me Zidan. I would like to ask a question. Actually, it's not really about a question, it's about your opinion. So you mentioned in the materials that you have a project to revise street in Korea from 8 lane to 4 lanes, right? To encourage people to walk a lot more often and use public transport instead of private one.
Right.
And I thought that was a brilliant idea to implement it here in Indonesia, but I have my own opinions about why in Indonesia it's still not very common to take a walk instead of using private transport, and that is because our climate here. We, as you know, we have tropical climate, which can be very hot here, and let's say in Semarang, in midday it can reach up to 40 degrees Celsius even when midday.
Right.
So it was that was my opinion on why one of the factors why walking is not very common. But I would like to know from your opinion, do you think it's one of the factors, or is it other things, like let's say it's just that we're not concerned enough about the importance of just take a walk instead of taking public transports? That's my questions. Thank you.
Okay, a very interesting one, arguable and debatable, but I will show my own ideas, Jaidan. Yes, I've been to Semarang many times, probably 6 or 7 times, right? I think. And during the daytime, it's very hot, right? Between probably 11 to 4 p.m. It's overly hot, so it's not a good idea to walk along the street without shade. It's not good for your health, I believe. But in early morning or after the sunset, the temperature goes down, and I believe it becomes much more walkable compared to the daytime. So I believe that this kind of change in the climate condition by daytime, and also by it's of course a tropical weather, but by different seasons the temperature goes up and down. And during the rainy season, it's even though there is rains, it becomes more walkable in terms of temperature. So I believe there is enough room for making your cities much more walkable compared to now. But the problem is that people are not very well aware of the importance of moving the city toward walkable environment, because you are already relying on cars and automobiles and other type of transportation. So I believe there a lot of different movement should take place, like providing more bus stops and sometimes building railways, light railways, or even you can think about building subways underground, and kind of a transfer system where a lot of people get together and also are distributed to different part of surrounding cities, and also make more shades by using trees and plants. And I believe the Indonesian weather is completely ideal for a lot of plants to make more shades along the public spaces. So it'll be much more walkable without direct exposure to daytime hot weather. And I don't know, for example, bike will not be a very good option, but maybe a motored bike, for example, and some personal mobility that is getting viral in South Korea, like motored kickboard, for example, is becoming very popular option for young people to move a few kilometers back and forth. So that kind of options, I believe, is a kind of next level mobility system that can be implemented in Indonesian cities like Semarang. That's my opinion.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. We can learn much how to make city more walkable from this case. But just keep spirit with these good ideas. We can develop Semarang and other cities more walkable, like Seoul City. Okay. Okay. Last will be Simon.
Okay, good afternoon. Thank you for the chance. My name is Simon. I want to ask about historical things in urban planning in South Korea, especially in Seoul. So, as we know, that Japanese period has a big impact on Seoul urban planning. So my questions is, what was the reason and why the massive destructions of buildings occurred during that period? Was it just a reason of history independences, or was the urban planning system at that period really bad? Because like what Professor Saehoon mentioned before, there was a massive urban development after the independence of South Korea, especially the city of Seoul. So I just want to know what distinguished the urban planning during the Japanese period with the Seoul urban planning as we can see now. That's my questions.
Okay, thank you for the question. It goes back to historic days, but if I recollect my memories, I can say that during the Japanese period, of course, many modern infrastructure were developed, but the overall direction for city making was not to make it more livable by the citizens, but make it as a kind of frontline headquarter for production and food collection, which will serve the military purpose of the Japanese. So it was not a kind of well-balanced and coordinated development of Seoul's urban environment. So after the liberation, as Simon just mentioned, some of these institutional and law system of Japanese period was followed up by the Korean government, but we had to reinvent most of the system and the way that urban development took place. One of the most contributing factor for this demand was that Seoul's population grew very rapidly. During the 60s and 70s, annually about the rate of urbanization was about 10%, meaning that the Seoul's population grew very rapidly. And in this earlier period, the Korean government was not financially ready for accommodating all of these people with the provision of road and public infrastructure, schools and houses. So there was a moment that very creative approach and reinvention of the whole system should be conducted at that time. So that was a kind of a turning point for the urban planners of South Korea to get more prepared. And of course, there were many errors and unfortunate developments which did not serve the real demand of the citizens, because the government and the mayor at that time was called the bulldozer mayor, which was more goal-oriented and was conducting into rapid development instead of quality development. So very poor level housing and road development was also undertaken at that time. So in the 80s and 90s, as the kind of social perception grew up, these kind of old and rapidly developed infrastructure should be reinvented again within a short period of time. And I believe that is kind of an trial and error process which took place in the contemporary history of Seoul and South Korea.
Okay, thank you for the explanation. It's very clear.
Thank you.
Okay. The next question will be from Gayatri. Could you please convey your question?
Yes, good afternoon, Professor. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Aya. I'd like to ask a question about the Cheonggyecheon restoration project. You said that there are many advantages from Cheonggyecheon stream restoration project, such as provides protection and provides flood protection, reduce small particles, air pollution, temperature reduction, and so on. Is there any disadvantage from that restoration project? Thank you.
Your question was that other projects like Cheonggyecheon?
Yeah, is there any disadvantage or negative side
disadvantage? Okay.
the project? Thank you.
Okay. Soyoung, do you think you can respond to her question?
The disadvantage of Cheonggyecheon restoration project. Now I can't think about it because I like Cheonggyecheon. Cheonggyecheon is really good place and there's many good advantages in this project. So I will quick
Okay.
Google it.
Before she responds, I will express my ideas. As Soyoung mentioned, it was a mayoral election project, meaning that before the candidate of mayor, he pronounced that he will make it happen during his period, meaning that it took place only within 27 months, which is very, very quick project. So because of this rapid and very short time period, all of the details of the project was not carefully planned. For example, as an urban stream is remade, the stream area, the bank area should be filled with the streams all through the year, right? But if you remember the earlier part of my lecture, the South Korea is a monsoon climate, meaning that the rainfall is not constant all through the year. When it rains, it pours. But when it does not rain, it gets very dry. So naturally, it is a nonsense to flow the water all the time along the channel of the stream. So at the time, there was a decision that the Han River water was pumped up to the upstream of Cheonggyecheon, and water is poured from the upper part of the stream, which is not ecologically sound, because it's a kind of a circulating the artificial water, which is pumped to from the bottom of the stream to the upstream of the stream. This kind of water management is very criticized by water flooding and ecologists in many perspectives. And also historic restoration was not carefully made. As you can imagine, once the excavation of Cheonggyecheon took place, there were many historic assets dating back to 600 years ago, like the wooden walls and the stone walls, and all the relics of the Joseon dynasty were found in the bottom of the stream. But restoring all these relics and bridges and built structures will take many years if we try to put it in the right location, in the right condition. So many of these historic restoration was very compromised. And also historians are very against this restoration project because of this point. So I believe these two aspects are kind of disadvantages of restoring in Cheonggyecheon, and it should have been more carefully prepared and designed, not within 27 months, I believe.
Yeah, thank you.
I think we can't hear you.
Sorry. Yeah, we have time. So I invite the next question. Are there any? Or maybe?
Professor, I want to ask.
Okay.
Okay.
Please. Okay.
Okay, so my name is Wanodia, and I want to ask, first of all, I'm sorry because I can't turn on my camera. Okay. In where I live in South Tangerang is a city near Jakarta. So we have a problem here, Jakarta and other cities. There are also many private cities which in the past were developed by the private sector, such as the land readjustment that you talked about earlier. But now there is a very clear gap between the private cities and government-owned cities. So the government cities are poorly facilitated, while private cities are very well developed. This is because, Indonesia is still a developing country, so the government has not focused its funds on urban design or redesigning its cities. So I want to ask your opinion. What do you think about this? What should the Indonesian government do about this problem? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. It's very timely and very important for the future of Semarang City. What I'm most afraid of about the future of Indonesian city is that kind of bifurcation between privately developed neighborhood and privately or publicly developed neighborhood. So as you can imagine that those people for private developers and for kind of rich classes of Indonesian people can be very well maintained, while it becomes a kind of gated community for exclusively for the people who are afford to pay for the very good and new environment, while the rest of the urban environment remains or still poorly serviced by public infrastructure. So one of the steps that can cure this kind of bifurcation is that, as a kind of probably guys, you as a student who are trained in architecture and urban design altogether, and go to the society and become, some of you will become part of the government officials too. And then for areas that are likely to experience this kind of public or private development, there should be a urban design plan that are not intended for rapid implementation, but for the future basic plan and direction should be set with the mind of pursuing the public good for the general citizens of Semarang. And then based on this vision, for each district, the government or the representative of the neighborhood should be a negotiating partner for the private developers who has the intention and capability of investing in your neighborhood. So with this kind of partnership with the government or the neighborhood representative who has the plan for the future with the very direct urban design goals and visions and plans, then meet with the private developer and then meet in the same table so that these different actors can participate in the remaking of neighborhoods. Otherwise, private developers with financial resources do whatever they want within the current law system, which has a lot of loopholes and not very detailed in dictating the physical environment of our cities. So I believe it'll be the first step. And this process of land development should be very institutionalized so that the procedure of each process is democratic and based on the laws. And then following on these laws, private developers should be also aware of the transparency of the process so that they have the schedule of investment and getting their profit from land development. And that in that way, I think that benefits both parties, the citizens, the public and the private developers at the same time.
Okay, thank you for your answer.
Thank you.
Okay. One more question. Are there any? Maybe from
Prof.
Professor.
Prof. Mengingatkan untuk presensi SS also, Prof.
Presensi?
Habis.
Oh yeah, okay. Okay. One more time for lecturer. Maybe I would. Are there any question from Prof. Edi Purwanto, or are you still here, Prof. Edi? Okay.
Excuse me, I want to ask a question.
Yes, please.
Good afternoon. Maybe I'll introduce myself first. My name is Ridwan. I'm from University of Diponegoro. I'd like to ask about, in many cities in Indonesia, we also have a small alleyway full of local shop like Old Jiro. But in most of the cases, the street is overtaken by many amount of motorcycles. So yeah, the city is not friendly pedestrian, I think. How to say that? What I like to ask is, does Korean have this similar problem with this kind of cases? And if it has, how the government solve this problem? Thank you.
Yeah, you can imagine that not long ago, a lot of Korean streets were filled with cars and motorbikes. And especially in the historic core area of Seoul, there has been a kind of continued long-term movement to reduce the amount of cars on streets and to make it difficult to park in historic core area and increase the fees payable by the parking drivers. So altogether, these kind of pricing and non-pricing, planning, designing, and neighborhood movement should put together for quite a long time to make the streets more walkable and livable. And I believe these kind of movement should be at the forefront of a city master plan and neighborhood plan and district level plans. And these goals of walkability should be very clearly connected to the last real project implemented by the government. And one of the most frequently used ways of putting this in action is that in Seoul, many streets were designated as a kind of pilot street project. So for some time, these streets are made into a pedestrian-friendly environment quite temporarily. And then the drivers who used to park and ride there are noticed that for a certain period, parking or passing by this area is prohibited. So use other roads or other streets for your own parking and passing by purposes. So after putting this kind of pilot project for some time, 6 months or 1 year, and this become part of the behavior change in the neighborhood. And I believe 1 or 2 kind of these pilot projects are well implemented and become a place that pedestrians love. And then there are shops nearby who want to make use of the atmosphere change in these kind of alleys. And then this become more socially recognized as a good way to revive their neighborhoods. So I think it takes time, but at some point, any change or any movement should have their own starting point. And I believe that in the city of Semarang, I think it's the kind of right time to do this kind of action in place. Am I right, Atik?
Right. Thank you so much, Saehoon. Okay. Oh, adik-adik mahasiswa, saya lupa presentasi ini ya, SSO-nya. Nanti saya coba untuk sampaikan ke admin. Mbak Indah ya, oke. Tenang adik-adik. Okay, Prof. Saehoon, I think it's over than our time, 5 minutes, but it is an interesting one, sharing lecture today. Yeah, and now I would like to conclude the presentation today. Today we have learned from Seoul City, who has integrated planning and design to make the city of Seoul, although it is an old city developed since in the 14th centuries up to now, with its distinctive character of the traditional and modern ones, that it is also considered about the natural and its ecologies also, and that is show that its sustainability of Seoul City. Yeah. And learn from the second war, Seoul City getting better with the planning and design, and then the Seoul City developed today show that some district of Seoul maintain well and preserve side by side with the traditional one and the modern ones. The project like restoration of Cheongyecheon stream to be an amenity public space, Yongno Street as a walkable city, yeah, walkable area, yeah, and preservation Bukchon and Sochon also, and revitalization of Old Jiro, yeah, as a hot place for the young generation. Yeah, there are some one program that urban design to make Seoul city more livable and get the quality of life. And for we to manage our city, I think it is we have the same chance like Seoul city also. You know, we have very close about in the independent day, yeah, where we are in 17 August 1945, and so in 15 August in 1945, yeah. So it is we are actually close one another, yeah. So learn from this case of Seoul City. I think all students, you have a good chance as a young generation, and you will be a leader in urban design and architecture for the next future, yeah. So keep your spirit, okay, and learn from Prof. Saehoon and Society. It is the interesting one to be motivated us to make our city better and get a quality of life better also. Okay, okay, Prof. Saehoon, thank you very much, and also So Yung Yoon, thank you very much for your collaboration in our activity, and I would